time also has an advantage in that the time that you've spent elsewhere, especially if it was usefully spent, you gain sufficient to be able to build on and to put and build the puzzle of life. The puzzle of life comes together from the different eras of our times. So that is why I will not say a particular timing is right or it's wrong. Yes, for starting a risky venture, the earlier you do, the better. Does that mean if it's considered late, you can't? No, but know what is it that you're taking.
You strike me as a winner, and you've won so many times in your life. What's your relationship with failure?
Failure is because I was working in corporate for many years in my life. I've never really failed, but I've also learned that because I've also studied a lot about the entrepreneur journey, that actually failure is also good.
It is.
Yes. Okay. Failure is also good. There are countries in the world, I think the US is one of them. You guys would know this, where entrepreneurs are actually rewarded for failing.
Yeah.
They're encouraged because the very fact that they actually were bold to put an idea and say, I will develop this idea and say it didn't succeed. They're rewarded for that by actually being given another opportunity rather than being written off. Because as long as it's very clear what failed, what lessons can you pick up from the failure, how do you ensure that through that failed venture, you build something even bolder and bigger and better going forward? So my relationship to failure is, of course, in life, we try not to fail. We try to succeed in what we do. But sometimes we make a mistake to think that failure is the end all. It's not an end all, because out of failure emanates good success.
So there hasn't been times in your journey where you had literally felt like you reached the end of the road and you must give up and you didn't?
No, not really. Well, except that I've already said that this, in particular, this venture, the strategy venture,
restaurant
is very, very hard. This one has got some very, very interesting dynamics. Sometimes I do feel like, hey, am I really succeeding on this one? Whereas I know in the franchise operations, that one is flying, and I'm actually happy about that, but I'm not happy that this one, where everything is me, has got dynamics that are such that they're not very easy to manage. So if you talk about worries about, and I mean, I'll give you the practicality here, where the levels of revenue that we are making is not sufficient for the spaces that we occupy. And then you've got the practicalities of landlords that don't care, quite frankly. I mean, they just, at the end of the day, want their money. So if the rent is X, then it doesn't matter what is it that you make. So there's a lot of play that you have to work with. So the world is not ideal, where you would say, if it was my own property, it was my own land and my own franchise, then I would pace myself accordingly. Part of this a failure that one can just chat about
or challenge
is when the pace of,
because you're not failing, you must win. You don't have a choice.
No. The pace is not necessarily always determined by you. So in this particular instance, there's a lot of other things that you've got to manage in terms of pacing yourself appropriately with a proposition. Because remember, even a space like what I'm talking about now, if I go to this particular opportunity that I have here, the ideal is not to have a landlord. The ideal is to have your own land. The ideal is to then put that investment in there, and you know it's safe, it's yours. And then you pace, and you pace with the market, you pace with the opportunities, you pace with the appetite that you have for risk, you pace with the however it is that you can venture and take yourself forward. Whereas when you've got this, you're already told that you're occupying 500 square meters. And 500 square meters, I'm afraid, needs X rent. Where is that rent going to come from? It needs X rent. So that's just one of the practicalities of dealing with this. But again, we're talking about entrepreneur.
Why is it worth it? Why is it worth it? Why?
That's exactly yes. Remember, there's a mistake that we make as people to say, oh, we need to be guided by the financials. Yes, financials are always a prerequisite for any success of any proposition. But again, even financials themselves, and I'm making an example here because the factors that are not determined by you. But if you think strategically, okay, a facility like where we are, and you look at this node, okay, yes, this is a residential site.
Yeah.
There's an established neighborhood there. Unfortunately, the established neighborhood has got some diversity dynamics, where some of the people in here are not necessarily in favor of businesses that are owned by other diversities. Okay, so you've got those practicalities. However, it's also a growth node from the expansion of Sandton, where a lot of people, especially young people that are still building themselves, are coming into this neighborhood. So one could argue and say restaurants like mine, or even centers like this one, may have been built slightly ahead of their time in terms of full potential. Therefore, your weight in terms of saying, oh, okay, there is even a change in the mix, in the diversity mix of what sits around you. And the future is very, very bright. The balance of chasing that future with the pressure of the financials of today is always the tension that you have to manage. So for me, I still believe it's worth my while. This is a fantastic location that I have here. And it's a growth node, right? And ultimately it will realize, but it's not one of those opportunities. I mean, I don't know if you guys have been here over the weekend. I fill this place up, but then regrettably during the week, I don't get the same train. And that's where now it touches the financials, because I need this community to support me far greater than they're doing at the moment. But some of the community very trapped into the past. They're tapped into how our country has been, and they will support X and not Y. And then. So you have to also deal with that.
And how does one then develop the strong mindset to be able to withstand, especially in periods of waiting?
Yeah.
You know, you described the scenario where you look at where a business is at this stage, right?
Yeah.
And where it's going. You can see what the future looks like. But in between, you obviously have to do the waiting. And how does one develop the right kind of mental toughness that's required, especially for young people as well? Because I mean, I can imagine there's a young guy that was just started a business or a restaurant and they're thinking, I need to hit it. Next year, I need to be driving a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.